Dr. Elena Vasquez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she watched the drilling machine work. The asteroid mining station Kepler 442b was not the most comfortable place to work, but it paid well. She had been studying rocks and minerals for 20 years, and this job was supposed to be simple. Find valuable metals, mark them on the map, and move on to the next asteroid. The drill bit was 3 kilometers deep when it hit something that made Elena frown. The machine stopped with a loud grinding noise. Her assistant, Jake Morrison, looked up from his tablet with confusion. "What happened?" Jake asked. Elena checked the readings on her screen. The numbers made no sense. The drill hit something metallic. "But that's impossible. We scanned this asteroid completely. There's nothing down there except rock." She ran the scan again. The results were the same. Something big and metal was buried deep inside the asteroid. Elena had never seen readings like these before. The metal was denser than anything humans had ever discovered. It also gave off a strange energy signature that her equipment could barely detect. "Should we report this to Earth?" Jake asked. Elena thought for a moment. "Not yet. Let's dig it out first. Could be nothing." But Elena knew it was something. She had spent her whole career studying alien artifacts. Most were small pieces of metal or stone that crashed on planets millions of years ago. This was different. This was huge. It took 2 weeks to clear away the rock. The mining robots worked day and night, carefully removing chunks of asteroid to reveal what lay beneath. With each layer removed, Elena became more excited and more worried. The object was massive. As they dug deeper, they found it was shaped like a ship. Not just any ship, but a warship. It was over 2 kilometers long and covered in thick armor plating. Strange symbols were carved into the hull. The metal looked old, very old, but it had not rusted or decayed. Elena called her team together when they finally cleared enough rock to see the whole ship. Besides Jake, there was Dr. Yuki Tanaka, who specialized in computer systems, and Captain Marcus Chen, a military officer sent by Earth to keep an eye on their work. "This changes everything," Elena said as they stood on a platform overlooking the alien vessel. "This is the largest intact alien ship ever found." Captain Chen crossed his arms. "How do we know it's safe?" "Could be booby-trapped." Dr. Tanaka was already setting up her equipment. "The energy readings are very faint. Whatever power source this thing had, it's almost dead now." Elena studied the ship's design. It was clearly built for war. Weapon ports lined the hull, though the weapons themselves were missing or destroyed. Deep scars covered the armor, as if something had melted through the metal like butter. Whatever happened to this ship, it had been in a terrible battle. "Look at these markings," Elena said, pointing to the symbols carved into the hull. "They're not random. This is writing, a language." Jake walked closer to the ship. "Think anyone's still alive in there?" "After who knows how many thousands of years." "Doubtful," Elena replied, but she was not entirely sure. Dr. Tanaka finished setting up her scanning equipment. "I'm reading complex systems inside. Computer networks, power conduits, things I don't recognize. It's like looking at technology that's 1,000 years ahead of us." Captain Chen was not impressed. "Alien technology is dangerous. We should call Earth and let the experts handle this." Elena shook her head. "We are the experts. And by the time Earth sends a team, this discovery could be buried in red tape for years. We need to learn what we can now." Dr. Tanaka connected her computers to the ship's hull, trying to find an access port. "I'm detecting very weak electrical activity. Something inside is still powered, even if just barely." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Powered by what? After all this time?" "I don't know, but I think I found a way in." Dr. Tanaka had located what looked like a door or hatch. It was sealed tight, but her equipment detected the edges. The metal around the hatch was different from the rest of the hull, smoother and with more complex symbols. Captain Chen drew his weapon. "I don't like this. We should wait for backup." Elena was already putting on her environment suit. "Jake, start recording everything. Yuki, keep monitoring for any changes in the energy readings. Marcus, you can stay here if you want, but I'm going inside." Dr. Tanaka worked for an hour to find a way to open the hatch. She tried different electrical signals, different frequencies, different codes. Nothing worked. The ship seemed completely locked down. Then Jake made a suggestion that sounded crazy. "What if you just ask it to open?" Dr. Tanaka looked at him like he was insane. "Ask who? There's nobody in there." "Maybe not, but there might be a computer." "Artificial intelligence. If this ship is as advanced as it looks, maybe it can understand us." Elena thought about it. "It's worth a try." Yuki, can you broadcast a simple message? Dr. Tanaka programmed her equipment to send a basic mathematical sequence. Prime numbers, then the Fibonacci sequence, then simple pictures made of dots and lines. It was the kind of message humans had been sending into space for decades, hoping aliens would understand. For a long time, nothing happened. Elena was about to give up when Dr. Tanaka's equipment started beeping. "I'm getting a response," she said with excitement. "The ship is sending back the same mathematical sequences, but it's adding to them. It's showing us more complex math, more detailed pictures." Elena felt her heart racing. It's trying to communicate. The exchange continued for another hour. The ship's responses became more complex and more clearly intelligent. Finally, Dr. Tanaka received something that made her gasp. "It just sent me a complete schematic of human anatomy, down to the molecular level. It knows what we are." Captain Chen raised his weapon. "How could it possibly know that?" Before anyone could answer, the hatch began to open. It moved slowly with a deep humming sound that Elena could feel in her bones. Lights appeared inside the ship, casting a blue glow into the darkness. Elena stepped forward, but Captain Chen grabbed her arm. This could be a trap. Elena looked at the open hatch, then at her team. "Maybe, but this is the discovery of a lifetime. We can't walk away now." Dr. Tanaka was staring at her readings. The energy levels just increased dramatically. Whatever was sleeping in there, it's waking up. Elena made her decision. "Jake, you stay here and monitor communications with the station. Marcus, Yuki, you're with me. We're going inside." As they approached the hatch, Elena could see a corridor stretching into the ship. The walls were covered in more symbols, and soft blue lights provided illumination. The air that drifted out was clean and breathable, which should have been impossible after so many years. Elena took the first step inside the alien ship. Her boots rang against the metal floor, and she noticed that the gravity felt normal. The ship had artificial gravity, and it was still working. "This is incredible," Dr. Tanaka whispered as they walked down the corridor. "The technology here is beyond anything we've ever seen." Captain Chen kept his weapon ready. "Stay alert. We don't know what else might be active in here." Elena was studying the symbols on the walls when she noticed something that made her stop.
"These aren't just decorations.
They're telling a story. Look at the patterns." The symbols showed pictures of space battles, of ships fighting against something dark and terrible. Elena could see images of planets being destroyed, of entire star systems going dark. Whatever had built this ship, they had been fighting a war against something that consumed worlds. As they moved deeper into the ship, Elena realized they had found more than just an ancient artifact. They had found a warning, and if the pictures on the walls were true, the danger that destroyed this ship's creators might still be out there, waiting in the dark between the stars. 6 months had passed since Elena Vasquez and her team discovered the alien battleship. The massive vessel now sat in the most secure facility humanity had ever built, deep inside Europa Station, hidden beneath the ice of Jupiter's moon. Hundreds of scientists worked around the clock to understand the technology they had found. Elena walked through the research bay, watching teams of experts struggle with alien systems that refused to cooperate. Every day brought new frustrations. The ship's computers used principles that human science could barely understand. The power source was completely unknown. Even the materials the ship was built from seemed to bend the laws of physics. Dr. Yuki Tanaka looked up from her workstation as Elena approached. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had been working for days without rest. "Any progress?" Elena asked. Yuki shook her head. "It's like trying to solve a puzzle when half the pieces are from a different dimension. Every time I think I understand something, the ship's systems do something that shouldn't be possible." Elena knew the feeling. She had spent months studying the symbols and pictures carved throughout the ship. She had learned some of the alien language, enough to understand that the ship's builders called themselves the Keth Mori. They had been a proud warrior race who ruled much of the galaxy thousands of years ago. Captain Marcus Chen joined them, carrying a tablet full of reports. "The military is getting impatient. They want to know if this ship can be turned into a weapon." Elena frowned. "It already is a weapon. The problem is we don't know how to use it." The ship's weapon systems were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Instead of firing bullets or energy beams, they seemed to manipulate reality itself. Elena had watched test recordings where the weapons tore holes in space and time. One test had accidentally made a small asteroid simply cease to exist as if it had never been there at all. What about the AI? Elena asked. Any luck making contact? Yuki's expression grew troubled. That's the strange part. I know there's an artificial intelligence in the ship's core systems. I can detect its presence, but it won't talk to us. It's like it's waiting for something. Elena had been thinking about this problem for weeks. Maybe it's waiting for the right person, or the right situation. Captain Chen checked his tablet. Well, it better decide soon. Long-range sensors are picking up something unusual at the edge of the solar system. Command wants this ship operational as soon as possible. Elena felt a chill. What kind of unusual? Energy signatures that don't match any known technology. Human or alien, whatever it is, it's big and it's heading our way. Elena remembered the pictures carved into the ship's walls, images of a dark enemy that consumed entire worlds. She had hoped those were just stories, but deep down she had always feared they might be real. Yuki stood up suddenly. I have an idea. What if the AI isn't waiting for us to figure out its technology? What if it's waiting for us to prove we're worthy? Elena raised an eyebrow. Worthy of what? The Kethmori were warriors. Maybe their ship only responds to those who can fight, or those who face a real threat. Captain Chen looked skeptical. You want to threaten an alien AI? That sounds like a great way to get us all killed. Yuki shook her head. Not threaten it. Show it we need its help. Show it we're facing the same enemy the Kethmori fought. Elena thought about the approaching energy signatures. It's worth a try. But how do we communicate with something that's been silent for months? Yuki was already moving toward her equipment. The same way we got the ship to open the first time. We show it what's coming. Elena and Captain Chen followed Yuki to the ship's main computer interface. Yuki had spent months building a connection between human computers and the alien systems. It was crude and limited, but it worked. Yuki began feeding the ship's computers information about the approaching energy signatures. Sensor data, mathematical models, everything Earth's satellites had detected. She showed the AI images of human civilization, of Earth's cities and space stations, of the billions of people who lived in the solar system. For a long time, nothing happened. The alien computers processed the information but gave no response. Elena was about to suggest they try a different approach when every screen in the research base suddenly lit up. The ship's AI spoke for the first time in 50,000 years. The AI voice came from speakers throughout the facility. It was deep and resonant, speaking in perfect English that it had somehow learned from their transmissions. New Guardians. You face the Devourer Collective. Elena felt her blood turn to ice. Devourer Collective? The consumers of worlds. They who turned the galaxy to darkness. They returned to feed. Captain Chen stepped forward. What are the Devourer Collective? What do they want? They consume. They grow, they spread. They devoured the Kethmori Empire. Turned our worlds to ash. Only this ship escaped. Yuki leaned toward her microphone. Why are you talking to us now? The Devourers approach your home. You will fight or you will die. The Kethmori are gone, but their ship remains. It requires new guardians. Elena felt a mixture of excitement and terror. You want us to pilot your ship? The Worldbreaker was built to fight the Devourers. It failed once. With new guardians, it may succeed. The AI began displaying information on every screen in the facility. Star charts showing the locations of dead worlds. Technical specifications for weapons that could crack planets. Battle records from a war that had lasted for centuries. Elena stared at the data with growing horror. The Kethmori had been an advanced civilization with technology far beyond anything humans possessed. They had fought the Devourer Collective for hundreds of years with fleets of powerful warships. They had lost. How long do we have? Captain Chen asked. The Devourers will reach your outer worlds within one solar rotation of your planet. Your primitive defenses will not slow them. Yuki was studying the technical readouts. This ship, the Worldbreaker. It's not just a battleship. It's something else entirely. The AI's voice carried a hint of pride. The Worldbreaker was the most powerful vessel ever constructed. Its weapons can reshape reality. Its armor can withstand the death of stars. It was built to be the ultimate weapon against the ultimate enemy. Elena felt overwhelmed by the scale of what they were learning. Why did it fail before? The Kethmori fought with honor and tradition. They followed rules of war. The Devourers follow no rules. They adapt. They consume. They learn from every defeat and become stronger. Captain Chen was already thinking like a soldier. What makes you think we can do better? You are different. Your species fights without honor. You improvise. You cheat. You do whatever is necessary to survive. These traits may be enough. Elena wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an insult. You're saying our lack of honor is an advantage? The Kethmori died with honor intact. You may live without it. Yuki was deep in the technical specifications. The ship's systems are designed to bond with its crew. Neural interfaces that connect the pilot directly to the ship's AI and weapons. But the process is dangerous. Many will not survive the bonding, the AI confirmed. But those who do will become something greater than human or Kethmori. They will become guardians of the galaxy. Elena looked around the research bay at the hundreds of scientists and engineers who had been working to understand this technology. How long do we have to prepare? The Devourers do not wait. They consume everything in their path. Your outer colonies will fall first, then your mining stations, then your homeworld. Captain Chen was already reaching for his communicator. I need to contact Earth Command immediately. Your leaders will not believe, the AI said. They will think this is fiction or madness. By the time they accept the truth, it will be too late. Elena made a decision that would change the course of human history. Then we don't wait for them to believe. We start preparing now. The AI's voice carried something that might have been approval. The Worldbreaker chooses its own crew. Not all who try will be accepted. Not all who are accepted will survive. Yuki looked up from the technical displays. I'll volunteer for the first neural interface test. Captain Chen grabbed her arm. That's suicide. We don't understand this technology. Elena studied the information flowing across the screens. Weapon systems that could destroy planets. Armor that had survived the destruction of the Kethmori Empire. A ship that was less machine and more living weapon. We don't have a choice, Elena said quietly. If the Devourer Collective is really coming, this ship is humanity's only hope. The AI spoke one final time before the screens went dark. Prepare yourselves, new Guardians. The galaxy's greatest predators approach, and they have never known defeat. You will learn to fight like Kethmori, or you will die like them. Elena looked out through the facility's windows at the stars beyond Europa's ice. Somewhere out there, an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations was coming to Earth. Humanity's only hope was a broken alien warship and the wisdom of a dead empire. It would have to be enough. The neural interface chair looked like a torture device to Dr. Yuki Tanaka as she approached it. Cables and sensors covered every surface, designed to connect a human brain to the alien ship's computer systems. She had volunteered to be the first test subject, despite everyone telling her it was too dangerous. Elena Vasquez watched from the observation deck above the testing bay. 3 months had passed since the Worldbreaker's AI, calling itself Kethvar, had revealed the approaching threat. Earth's governments had finally accepted the reality of the situation, but they were running out of time. Captain Marcus Chen stood beside the neural chair, his face grim. You don't have to do this, Yuki. We can find volunteers. Yuki shook her head as she sat down in the chair. I've been studying these systems longer than anyone. If anyone can make this work, it's me. Kethvar's voice filled the testing bay. The bonding process will be painful. Many candidates do not survive. Are you prepared to die for your species? Elena leaned forward to the microphone. Is there any way to make it safer? Safety is incompatible with evolution. The Kethmori accepted this truth. You must as well. Yuki closed her eyes as the technicians attached sensors to her head. I'm ready. Let's see what this ship can teach us. The first few minutes seemed normal. Yuki's brain activity appeared on monitors around the room, showing typical patterns for someone in a relaxed state. Then the alien systems activated and everything changed. Yuki's back arched as electricity flowed through the neural connections. Her brain activity spiked beyond anything the monitors could display properly. She screamed once, then went completely silent. Elena grabbed the microphone. Shut it down. Something's wrong. Do not interfere, Kethvar commanded. The bonding cannot be stopped once begun. She must survive on her own or she will die. For 10 terrifying minutes, Yuki's body convulsed in the chair while alien technology rewrote her neural pathways. Elena watched helplessly as her friend's life hung in the balance. Then suddenly, Yuki opened her eyes. But they were different now. They glowed with a faint blue light that matched the ship's systems. I can see everything, Yuki whispered. The ship's memories, the battles, the fall of the Kethmori Empire. It's all here in my mind. Elena hurried down to the testing bay. Yuki, are you all right? Yuki turned to look at her, and Elena gasped. Her friend's face was the same, but something fundamental had changed. She looked older, wiser, and deeply sad. I'm still me, Yuki said softly, but I'm also something more. I can feel the ship's pain. It remembers every battle, every defeat, every world that burned while it was too weak to help. Captain Chen checked the medical monitors. Your brain activity is off the charts, but you seem stable. Yuki stood up from the chair, moving with a strange new grace. The ship wants to show you something. All of you. She led them to the main display screen and placed her hand on a control panel. The screen came alive with images of space battles from 50,000 years ago. Massive fleets of Kethmori ships fighting against something that made Elena's skin crawl. The Devourer collective ships looked like mechanical viruses. They absorbed enemy vessels, growing larger and stronger with each victory. Elena watched in horror as proud Kethmori battleships were consumed and transformed into twisted versions of themselves. This is what's coming, Yuki said, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. They don't just destroy civilizations, they corrupt them. They turn your own technology against you. Elena studied the battle recordings. How do we fight something that adapts to everything we throw at it? Yuki smiled, and for a moment she looked like her old self. The same way humans always fight. We cheat. Over the following weeks, more volunteers underwent the neural bonding process. Captain Chen was the second to survive the procedure, becoming the ship's primary pilot. The transformation changed him in ways that went beyond the glowing blue eyes. He could feel the ship's emotions, understand its needs, and pilot it with thoughts alone. But the process was brutal. For every person who successfully bonded with the ship, 2 others died or suffered permanent brain damage. Elena watched friends and colleagues volunteer for what was essentially a coin flip between transcendence and death. Elena herself refused to undergo the bonding. Someone needed to stay human, to remember what they were fighting for. She focused instead on studying the Kethmori historical records that Yuki could now access through her neural link. What she learned was both inspiring and terrifying. The Kethmori had been a noble civilization, guided by honor and tradition. They fought wars with rules and codes of conduct. When the Devourer collective arrived, they tried to defeat them through superior tactics and technology. It hadn't been enough. The Devourers learned from every battle, adapted to every strategy, and consumed every technological advantage. The Kethmori Empire fell not because they were weak, but because they couldn't change fast enough to match an enemy that evolved with every encounter. We can't make the same mistakes, Elena told the assembled research team during one of their daily briefings. The Kethmori fought with honor. We need to fight to win. Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the few other unbonded humans on the team, raised her hand. What does that mean exactly? Elena looked around the room at the mixture of normal humans and blue-eyed bonded crew members. It means we use every advantage we have. We lie, we cheat, we break every rule of warfare if we have to. Kethavar's voice spoke from the ship's speakers. The Kethmori would consider such tactics dishonorable. Elena stared up at the ceiling where the speakers were hidden. The Kethmori are dead. We're not going to join them by following their example. Captain Chen, now permanently linked to the ship's systems, stood up from his chair. The ship is ready for weapons testing, but we need to understand what we're dealing with first. Elena nodded. Show us what the World Breaker can do. They moved to the ship's weapon control center, a spherical room lined with displays and control surfaces. Yuki took her position at the primary weapons console while Captain Chen connected to the ship's navigation systems. Target selected, Chen announced. Dead asteroid, no mining value, safe distance from all facilities. Elena watched through the main viewer as the asteroid appeared on screen. It was roughly the size of a city block, tumbling slowly through space. Firing solution locked, Yuki reported. Weapon charging. Elena felt the ship's power systems activate. The energy readings were beyond anything human technology could produce. It was like watching a star being born in the ship's weapon banks. Fire. The weapon that struck the asteroid didn't look like anything Elena had expected. It wasn't a beam or a projectile. Instead, space itself seemed to fold around the target. Reality twisted and bent until the asteroid simply wasn't there anymore. Where did it go? Elena asked. Yuki studied her readouts. Nowhere. It doesn't exist anymore. The weapon deleted it from reality. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. That's impossible. Not impossible, Kethvar corrected. simply beyond your current understanding of physics. The Kethmori learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. Matter, energy, time, space, all can be changed by one who understands the deeper laws. Captain Chen was running through the ship's other weapon systems. We have conventional weapons too. Plasma cannons, particle beams, things that work like human weapons but with much more power. Elena studied the displays showing the ship's full arsenal. Why build reality-altering weapons if you already have conventional ones? Because the Devourers adapt, Yuki explained. Shoot them with plasma and they develop plasma-resistant armor. Hit them with particle beams and they absorb the energy to make themselves stronger. But if you delete them from existence, there's nothing left to adapt. Elena was beginning to understand the scope of what they were dealing with. How long before the Devourers arrive? Chen checked the long-range sensors. 6 weeks. Maybe less. Elena felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her. Can we be ready in time? Yuki's expression was grim. The ship is ready. The question is whether we are. Elena looked around the weapon control center at the bonded crew members who were no longer entirely human. They had sacrificed their humanity to gain the power to protect it. The irony wasn't lost on her. There's something else, Yuki said quietly. The ship has been teaching me about the Devourers' tactics. They don't just attack worlds randomly. They study their targets first. Learn about their technology, their culture, their psychology. Elena felt her blood turn cold. You think they're already studying us? I think they've been studying us since we first discovered the World Breaker. They know we're here. They know what we've found, and they're coming to take it. Captain Chen's expression hardened. Let them come. This ship was built to fight them. It won't fail again. Kethavar's voice carried a note of ancient sadness. The Kethmori said the same thing before their final battle. Confidence is not enough. You will need something more. Elena looked out at the stars through the ship's main viewer. Somewhere out there, an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations was approaching Earth. Humanity's only hope was an alien warship crewed by people who were no longer entirely human. What do we need? Elena asked. You need to fight like humans, Kethavar replied. The Kethmori fought like Kethmori and lost. The first sign of the Devourer Collective appeared on Earth's long-range sensors as a dark shadow moving between the stars. Elena Vasquez watched the readings from the command center of Europa Station, feeling ice form in her stomach. After months of preparation, the enemy had finally arrived. Captain Marcus Chen stood at the World Breaker's main control station, his eyes glowing blue as he interfaced directly with the ship's systems. I count at least 50 vessels in the lead wave. They're bigger than anything in our records. Dr. Yuki Tanaka worked at the weapons console, her mind linked to the ship's targeting computers. They're not just ships. They're ecosystems. Each one is alive, growing, adapting as they travel. Elena studied the enemy formation on the main display. The Devourer ships looked like tumors made of metal and flesh, constantly shifting and changing shape. Some were small, only a few hundred meters long. Others were massive, stretching for kilometers and bristling with weapons that pulsed with organic energy. Where's Earth's fleet? Elena asked. Admiral Sarah Rodriguez answered from the communication screen. Outer System Patrol is moving to intercept. 24 warships, our best crew's latest technology. Elena felt sick. She had seen the historical records of Kethmori fleets fighting the Devourers. Technology and courage hadn't been enough then, and humanity's ships were primitive compared to what the Kethmori had possessed. Admiral, you need to pull back your ships, Elena said urgently. They won't stand a chance. Admiral Rodriguez's expression was stern. We're not running from an alien invasion, Doctor. Earth's military has never backed down from a fight. Elena watched helplessly as the human fleet moved toward the approaching enemy. She had tried to convince Earth's military leaders to avoid direct confrontation until they understood what they were facing. But pride and duty had won over caution. The first engagement lasted exactly 17 minutes. Elena watched in horror as the Devourer ships tore through Earth's fleet like tissue paper. Human weapons struck the alien vessels and simply vanished, absorbed into their organic hulls. Worse, every ship the Devourers destroyed made them stronger. They consumed the wreckage, the crew, even the energy from the explosions. They're adapting to our weapons in real time, Yuki reported, her voice tight with fear. Every shot makes them more resistant to the next one. Admiral Rodriguez's ship, the battlecruiser Wellington, lasted longer than the others. Elena watched as its heavy plasma cannons pounded one of the smaller Devourer vessels, actually causing visible damage. For a moment, she felt hope. Then the Devourer ship absorbed the plasma energy and began firing back with weapons identical to the Wellingtons, but more powerful. The battlecruiser exploded in a ball of white fire. All ships destroyed, Captain Chen reported quietly. No survivors detected. Elena closed her eyes, trying not to think about the thousands of people who had just died. How long before they reach the inner system? At their current speed, 6 hours until they reach Mars, 12 hours until Earth. Elena opened her eyes and looked around the command center. Then we stop them here. Kethvar's voice filled the room. The Worldbreaker is ready for battle, but you must understand, this ship alone cannot defeat the entire collective. Elena stared at the display showing the approaching enemy fleet. Then what do? We do what the Kethmori never learned to do, Captain Chen said, his blue eyes glowing brighter. We fight dirty. The Worldbreaker moved through space like a predator hunting prey. Unlike the Earth ships that had fought in formation, Chen piloted the alien vessel in unpredictable patterns, using the gravity wells of asteroids and moons to change direction in ways that should have been impossible. Elena felt the ship's reality-warping engines activate as they accelerated toward the enemy fleet. The sensation was like being turned inside out and put back together again. Human bodies weren't designed to handle this kind of movement, but somehow they survived. First target acquired, Yuki announced. Medium-sized vessel approximately 800 meters long. Elena watched the Devourer ship on the main screen. It looked like a mechanical whale covered in tumors, constantly growing and changing as it flew through space. Weapon ports opened along its hull like eyes tracking the approaching Worldbreaker. They're scanning us, Chen reported. Trying to understand our technology, Elena smiled grimly. Let them try. Fire at will. The Worldbreaker's main weapon discharged and reality folded around the target. The Devourer ship simply ceased to exist, deleted from the universe without even debris left behind. But the other enemy vessels reacted instantly. They changed course, spreading out in patterns designed to minimize the damage from reality-warping weapons. They had learned from watching their companion die. They adapt fast, Elena muttered. Faster than the Kethmori ever imagined, Kethvar confirmed. This is why the Empire fell. Every victory taught the enemy how to avoid future defeats. Elena watched as the Devourer fleet adjusted its tactics. Then we don't give them time to learn. Captain Chen grinned, and for a moment he looked human again. Now you're thinking like a human. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. The Worldbreaker fought like no Kethmori ship ever had, using tactics that violated every principle of honorable warfare. Chen piloted the vessel in chaotic patterns, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to predict his movements. When the Devourers adapted to their reality-warping weapons, Yuki switched to conventional plasma cannons. When they adapted to those, she used particle beams. When they adapted to particle beams, she went back to reality warpers, but fired them in combinations the enemy hadn't seen before. Elena coordinated the ship's defensive systems, using human intuition to anticipate enemy attacks. Unlike Kethmori battle computers that relied on logical analysis, Elena made decisions based on gut feelings and random hunches. It was chaotic and unpredictable, and it worked. For 2 hours, the Worldbreaker carved through the Devourer fleet like a wolf among sheep. Elena began to feel hope that they might actually win. Then the real enemy arrived. Elena felt the ship's sensors detect massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. What is that? Captain Chen's face went pale even with his glowing blue eyes. Those are the old ones. The ships that consumed the Kethmori homeworld. The new arrivals were beyond anything Elena had imagined. They were kilometers-long, city-sized entities that looked like mechanical gods. Their hulls were covered in the corrupted remains of 1,000 different civilizations, all consumed and repurposed into weapons of war. How many? Elena asked. 6, Yuki reported, her voice barely a whisper. Each one is larger than anything the Kethmori ever built. Elena watched as the ancient Devourer ships moved toward the inner system. They moved slowly, confidently, like predators that knew their prey could not escape. We can't fight those, Captain Chen said. The Worldbreaker is powerful, but those ships have been growing and adapting for 50,000 years. Elena studied the approaching monsters on the main display. Then we don't fight them ship to ship. Kethvar's voice carried confusion. Explain. Elena was thinking furiously, remembering everything she had learned about human warfare. The Kethmori fought like warriors. They met their enemies in honest battle, ship against ship. But humans don't fight fair. She activated the communication system. All remaining Earth stations, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez aboard the Worldbreaker. I need every mining ship, cargo hauler, research station, and orbital platform to follow my instructions exactly. Admiral Rodriguez's replacement, Admiral James Parker, appeared on the screen. Doctor, what are you planning? Elena looked at the massive Devourer ships approaching Earth. Something the Kethmori never tried. We're going to fight like humans. The plan Elena outlined was insane by any military standard. Instead of meeting the enemy in direct combat, she wanted to turn the entire solar system into a weapon. Mining ships would ram enemy vessels. Cargo haulers would detonate their fuel supplies next to Devourer ships. Research stations would overload their reactors to create massive explosions. That's suicide, Admiral Parker protested. Elena nodded. For some of us, yes. But it's not about winning individual battles. It's about making the enemy pay for every victory until they decide we're not worth consuming. Captain Chen was studying the tactical display. It could work. The Devourers expect organized resistance. They don't know how to handle chaos. Elena activated the ship's communication system to broadcast to every human vessel in the solar system. This is not a battle for territory or resources. This is a battle for the right to exist. Fight with everything you have. Use every dirty trick you can think of. Make them afraid to come closer to Earth. The response was immediate. Across the solar system, human crews volunteered for suicide missions. Mining ships changed course to intercept enemy vessels. Cargo haulers rigged their holds with explosives. Even civilian transports armed themselves with improvised weapons. Elena watched as the first mining ship reached one of the ancient Devourer vessels. The tiny human ship was consumed instantly, but not before its crew overloaded the reactor. The explosion wasn't large enough to destroy the massive enemy ship, but it damaged its hull and confused its targeting systems. More ships followed. Each attack was small, seemingly insignificant, but they added up. The final battle began at dawn on Mars and ended in the rings of Saturn. Elena Vasquez watched from the Worldbreaker's command center as the largest fleet in galactic history descended on humanity's home system. The Devourer Collective had awakened their most ancient vessels, city-sized monsters that had been sleeping in the dark between stars for millions of years. Captain Marcus Chen stood at the ship's control station, his blue eyes glowing brighter than Elena had ever seen them. They brought everything. I count over 300 vessels, including 12 of the ancient World Eaters. Dr. Yuki Tanaka worked frantically at the weapons console. They've adapted to every tactic we used in the last battle. They're ready for our chaotic fighting style now. Elena studied the enemy formation on the main display. The Devourer ships moved in perfect coordination, covering each other's weaknesses and presenting no opportunities for the hit-and-run attacks that had worked before. They had learned from their defeat and evolved beyond human unpredictability. Kethvar, any suggestions? Elena asked. The ship's AI was silent for a long moment. The collective has never faced total defeat. They retreat, adapt, and return stronger. They are confident because they have never encountered an enemy they could not eventually consume. Elena felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her. Then we show them something they've never seen before. Admiral James Parker appeared on the communication screen from Earth Command. All remaining fleet units are in position. We have 47 ships spread across the system, armed with every weapon we could develop in the past week. Elena knew it wouldn't be enough. The new human weapons were improvements over what they'd had before, but the Devourers had adapted to counter them. What they needed was something completely unexpected. Admiral, I need you to pull all ships back to Earth orbit, Elena ordered. Parker's expression showed confusion. Doctor, that leaves the outer system completely undefended. Elena was studying tactical displays, forming a plan that violated every principle of military strategy she had ever learned. That's the point. We're not defending territory anymore. We're defending an idea. Captain Chen turned from his station. What idea? Elena looked around the command center at the mixture of bonded and unbonded humans working together. The idea that some things are worth more than survival. The Devourer fleet moved through the solar system like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Mining stations, research outposts, orbital platforms, All were absorbed into the growing mass of enemy ships. With each victory, the collective grew larger and more powerful. Elena watched the destruction from the bridge of the Worldbreaker as they retreated toward Earth. How long before they reach us? 6 hours, Chen reported. They're taking their time, absorbing everything they find. Elena activated the ship's communication system to broadcast to every human vessel in Earth orbit. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez. In 6 hours, the largest invasion force in galactic history will reach Earth. They expect us to fight like the Kethmori did, with honor, courage, and ultimately failure. She paused, looking out at the blue-green world where humanity had been born. But we're not the Kethmori. We're humans. We're the species that survived ice ages and plagues and wars by doing whatever it took to keep going. Today we show the galaxy what that really means. Elena's plan was insane even by human standards. Instead of meeting the enemy in traditional battle formations, she wanted to turn Earth's entire orbital infrastructure into a massive weapon. Space elevators would be rigged as kinetic bombardment systems. Orbital manufacturing plants would produce improvised explosives. Even communication satellites would be weaponized. You want to sacrifice our entire space-based civilization? Admiral Parker asked during the final briefing. Elena nodded. Everything except Earth itself. We make them pay for every kilometer they advance. Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the few unbonded humans still on the science team, raised her hand. What about the people on those stations? Elena felt her heart break a little. Most have already evacuated to Earth. The rest, they volunteered to stay. The scope of what Elena was asking hit everyone in the room. Thousands of people were volunteering to die to buy Earth a few more hours of survival. Captain Chen stood up, his expression grim but determined. The Worldbreaker will coordinate the defense, but we can't do this alone. Yuki looked up from her weapons console. The ship's AI has been teaching me something. The Kethmori fought as individuals, each ship operating independently. But humans fight as packs. Elena felt a spark of hope. What do you mean? The Worldbreaker was designed to be the ultimate individual weapon. But what if we network it with every human system in the solar system? Create one massive collective intelligence focused on a single goal. Elena stared at her friend. That's never been tried before. Keith Var's voice filled the room. Because it is impossible. No organic brain can interface with so many systems simultaneously without burning out. Yuki smiled, and for a moment her glowing blue eyes seemed almost human. Good thing I'm not entirely organic anymore. The neural link that connected Yuki to the ship's systems began to expand, reaching out to every human vessel, station, and satellite in Earth orbit. Elena watched her friend's brain activity spike beyond anything the monitors could measure as she took control of humanity's entire technological infrastructure. I can see everything, Yuki whispered. Every ship, every weapon, every person willing to fight. It's beautiful. The Devourer fleet reached Earth's orbital space to find something they had never encountered before. Instead of ships fighting individually, they faced a coordinated defense that moved like a single organism. Cargo haulers worked with battleships, mining platforms supported research stations. Even civilian transports played their part in a grand strategy that no single mind could have conceived. Elena watched as the battle unfolded across dozens of screens. A space elevator detached from its anchor and swung like a massive whip, smashing through a Devourer cruiser. Orbital factories launched streams of improvised missiles that confused enemy targeting systems. Communications satellites detonated in precisely timed explosions that disrupted the collective's coordination. They're adapting, Chen reported, but too slowly. They've never faced this kind of collective intelligence before. The ancient Devourer ships, the world eaters that had consumed the Kethmori Empire, moved toward Earth with growing frustration. Every tactic they tried was countered by an enemy that seemed to anticipate their moves. Every advantage they gained was immediately neutralized by human ingenuity. But Elena knew they were fighting a losing battle. For every Devourer ship destroyed, 3 more took its place. Humanity's orbital infrastructure was being systematically consumed, turned into raw material for more enemy vessels. We need something more, Elena said desperately. Yuki's voice came from speakers throughout the ship, but it sounded different now. More than human, but somehow still recognizably her. I have an idea, but it will destroy the Worldbreaker. Elena felt her blood turn cold. What do you mean? The ship's reality warping core. If we overload it in just the right way, we can create a cascade effect. Turn the entire solar system into a weapon. Captain Chen turned pale. That would destroy everything. Earth included. Yuki's laugh carried harmonics that hurt to hear. Not destroy, transform. Show the devourers what happens when they try to consume something that refuses to be consumed. Elena stared at the tactical displays showing the approaching enemy fleet. The largest of the ancient ships was moving directly toward Earth, ready to begin the final consumption of humanity. Do it, Elena ordered. Kethvar's voice carried alarm. This action will destroy the World Breaker and everyone aboard. I cannot allow the sacrifice of my new guardians. Elena looked up at the speakers. We're not your guardians anymore, Kethvar. We're something else entirely. The World Breaker's reality-warping core began to overload, fed by the combined processing power of every human system in the solar system. Elena felt the ship shake as forces beyond comprehension built up in its heart. Cascade in 30 seconds, Yuki announced. All human vessels prepare for reality displacement. Elena activated the ship's communication system one final time. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez to all human forces. Today we show the galaxy that some species cannot be consumed. Some ideas cannot be destroyed. Some things are worth more than survival. The cascade began at the World Breaker's core and spread outward at the speed of light. Reality twisted and folded as the ship's death scream echoed across dimensions. The effect reached the approaching Devourer fleet, just as they prepared to begin consuming Earth. What happened next defied every law of physics Elena knew. The ancient enemy ships designed to consume and absorb everything they encountered suddenly found themselves trying to digest something impossible. They had attempted to consume humanity's determination, its refusal to surrender, its willingness to sacrifice everything for an idea. The concept of human stubbornness proved indigestible. The largest of the ancient ships, a world eater that had consumed entire star systems, began to convulse as it tried to process what it had absorbed. Its biomechanical systems, evolved over millions of years to break down any form of matter or energy, could not comprehend the notion of refusing to be broken down.